Thank you for coming back to Great Leaders Serve. I'm your host, Kevin Best, and with me today is Dan Cawley. Dan Cawley is the founder of Cawley Chicago Real Estate, which he founded in 1998, and in 2022, he was inducted into the Commercial Real Estate Hall of Fame. I want to thank you for coming in today, Dan. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here, Kevin. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah. So tell me about your business. So what is it that you do, and why did you get founded?
We're a commercial real estate company, third-party brokerage and management company. I founded the company in 1998 as a result of kind of seeing the consolidation in the industry, meaning that there were a number of large national real estate companies, and CB Richard Ellis is maybe a name that sounds familiar to folks that might be listening here. They were probably the largest. And then they became CBRE. And with that, they merged with a couple of other different companies. The same thing happened with Cushman & Wakefield and so on throughout the industry. So what I thought would happen has happened. And that was with the consolidation, and they were trying to be a one-stop shop, Kevin. And what I thought would happen is that their level of service would be drawn to the larger business owners. And so there was this whole strata of companies that probably weren't going to be able to get served properly by the bigger companies because of the fact that the dollar amounts, commissions, may not have been enough for them to spend the time. And so, in addition to the consolidation, they had to, they also became publicly traded companies. And so now with that additional piece, burden, if you will, that's how I looked at it from, they were our competition, but they also then had to perform. And so, their stock price needed to perform. So who were they working for was the question. They working for their client, or are they working to get stock price and those kinds of things? So, it worked, as it turns out. And so it left a whole strata of companies, business and property owners for us to kind of control. And the other thing, advantage that we had at the time was that it was easier for us to move up in terms of deal size rather than for them to move down in terms of deal size. So, we were able to flourish.
So now you said in something that you had written to me that you have sold your business, but you're back in the business. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. I don't know when enough is enough, apparently. So it was always, I was able to found my business I wasn't intending to start a company. But my best client at the time, back in 1998, when I found the company, listened to me whine about what was wrong with the company that I was a partner in. And so he wrote me a check at lunch one time for a pretty sizable amount and said, "Here, go start your own company." I didn't have any side documents. He just, here's the money, go start the company.
That's pretty nice guy.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And so all of a sudden it was, put up or shut up. So I was, I had lots of business training experience, not in college, by the way. Didn't do very good there, but I was always a planner. Yeah, believed in business planning and that kind of thing. And so I wrote a business plan when this guy gave me the check. And the first thing I needed to do was, what if it doesn't work? How am I going to pay him back? So the first thing I wrote in my business plan was my exit plan. And my exit plan was to be successful and then sell it to the brokers that work for me. So I don't know why I felt that was taking the pressure off of me, and that was a real exit plan. But anyway, that's what happened. And so when I executed the In 2018, we brought in another similar sized commercial company through a relationship of mine in the industry. And with them came another 7 or 8 guys. And out of the combined companies, as part of that deal, I offered 57% of the company to these guys. And so I financed that first tranche of share sales. We were an S corp, and so we had 1,000 shares, and so I sold 570 shares to these other 7 men. And then at the end of 2022, at the end of in September 22, they came to me and said, "Okay, we're ready. We'd like to do the rest of it." So we structured a deal. They paid off the balance of their debt from the first tranche, and we closed in January of this year on the last 430 shares. And so, and then I wanted to stay because I thought, so 2 things. One is, selling a business was something, why just put a key in the door and lock it up, right? And then the second was, I have this book of business that I've developed over a 45-year career. Same thought process. Why would I just give that up? And so I'm building a 3-man team, potentially up to 5-person team. And we're going to use my contacts over the years and produce. And I'm going to give them the book of that book of business, but I get to mentor one person who's never been in the business before, and I've got a long time broker, and so I can spend time in Naples, Florida, have these folks on the ground. I can manage the relationship, and over the next 3 years, I'm going to turn that book over to them, and there will be some residual commissions that I'll make for the next 5 to 6 years. So,
sounds great. Sounds like a great plan.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. So now, one of the things how we got introduced to each other was through John Stalwart and the Serving Leader, and you adjusted your company to take on the Serving Leader management system. Can you tell me why you chose to go with that management system instead of anything else that was out there? What was it about the Serving Leader that really captured what you wanted to have your business look like and be like?
Yeah, so I think it was an amazing match. The first time I walked into a cohort, Stalwart had to call me and convince me on several occasions to write the check, which he did. And the moment I walked into the first cohort here in Chicago, I felt immediately like this feels right. I'm kind of a by feel guy, in my decision making. I try to understand as many facts as possible, but I'm still a by feel guy. And I'm a Christian man as well. And so it seemed like it aligned with a lot of my personal values, from a faith standpoint. Not that I'm a perfect guy, because I'm far from that, and thank the Lord for forgiveness, because, I've needed to have that for many, many times in my life. But the principles, the 5 action steps, that John has taught and that I learned, was exactly what was spinning around in my head in terms of the missing piece for me personally in my planning of this business and, all the rest of it. But it was the language, it was the thought process, it was the values of all that just kind of seemed to come together in a very succinct manner. And it's like, okay, cool. So it just made complete total sense to me, in terms of the action steps.
Yeah. So one of the things that you had talked to me about at one point was, you said, when I founded the company, I wanted to make a difference personally and professionally by passionately creating integrity-based, fun, and healthy relationships. So that seems to go along with Serving Leader and those 5 principles of build on strength, blaze the trail, raise the bar, bend the pyramid, run to great purpose. But how did you meld those 2 things together? And by the way, it sounds like you were successful enough to be able to have people want to buy you out. So how did you meld those 3 things together? You wanted to make money, you wanted to have fun, and you wanted to follow those 5 areas.
Yeah, I think the stake in the ground, I think, for that. My personal mission statement, which you just read, thank you for doing that, was really a purpose, of what's my purpose in life. And so the 5 action steps specifically talk about understanding what your purpose is. And I'm also a fan of Rick Warren. He had written The Purpose-Driven Life. And so there were all of these things that were just kind of all came together for me. And it just, I think having a purpose is the most important thing in your life and in a company's life as well. And then building to that purpose so that you make sure you can deliver what you say you're going to do.
So let me ask you about the one part is that, many people who might consider looking at serving leader, the concern they would have is, how does this make me any money? I am still a capitalist. I still want to provide for my family. I still want to have a good life. How did you feel? How did you get to mold those two things together?
Well, as I had said previously, you asked me how it kind of came to be, how the company came to be, and this was before meeting John. However, it was after having gone through your life's purpose exercise, which is the mission statement. That's my personal mission statement that you read. So when I went through the exercise of my life's purpose and I came up with that, make a difference personally and professionally by passionately creating integrity-based, fun, and healthy relationships, there's 5 values there that I had determined in 1992 that were the most important values of my life: making a difference, integrity, passion, fun, and health. And so I've been living my life with those 5 values since probably my whole life, but until I didn't uncover those or discover those right until 1992. So then the story about this whole strata of businesses that couldn't be reached, it was fairly easy to plug the services that were available through a commercial real estate company, happened to be mine, in terms of that could make a difference to them because they weren't going to get served properly by the bigger companies. So it aligned with our purpose. My personal purpose became the company's mission statement as well for a long time. The guys that have bought it are probably in the process of tweaking that a little bit. It's their company; they can do whatever they want, and I wish them all the best. But it was the way to make money we had a specific, subset of business and property owners that we chased, and we were going to provide them, make a difference to them by creating it with passion, integrity-based relationships, right?
And they just want to talk to their friends about you and say, hey, this is the guy we want to work with. This is the organization we want to work with. Yeah.
And I had people warn me about, well, why do you have fun in there? It's like, well, if I'm going to work this hard, I better have some fun.
Yeah.
And honestly, Kevin, the result has been that some of my best friends in my life are people that I've done business with. So
that's fantastic. So there are always pressing issues that you're going to run into when you're running a business, when you're the CEO, the owner, the founder. So when you think about how did serving leader, did it help you along the way? Did it create some issues because you wouldn't cut corners? You would stay with that integrity? How did that help you? How did it hurt you when you think about how your business evolved over the last few decades?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the human condition is to, I want what I want and I want it right now. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, overcoming that wasn't easy. It's because the whole world is talking like that, right? The whole world tells you that you should have the new car or this or that, but it's all new. And right now I should, give it to me. But again, going back to values, right? John's program is a values-based management program, right? And so, the good guy, the bad guy, and the good guy were sitting on my shoulders, and because it was values-based, I was listening to the good guy. Not all the time, not every single time. Again, I'm human, but that the values won out.
So when you think about, let's talk about some financial challenges. And you had told me a little bit about this. before, but some unique financial challenges that you may have faced over the last few years that the serving leader method that you use, the management method you use, really actually was able to pull you out of some problem areas.
Yeah. Well, I think any business owner that's had a business since the mid 90s, if you think about it, we had the Y2K, right? We thought the world was going to come to an end. And then we had and it didn't.
Yep.
Yes. And then we had the financial meltdown where all of the liquidity was sucked out of the market. And so all kinds of businesses went bye-bye because they couldn't get any money. And I had the fortune, I guess I would say, back in the late 70s when I was younger and licensed. But I had 12% interest rates. My family, I worked in my dad's real estate company before I came to Chicago and started my own gig. And so we were building houses. We had 5 spec houses under construction at 12% interest rates. And then when we finished them, it was 22% interest rate. But they gave us the money. Fast forward to 2008, 9, 10, 11, that money wasn't available. If they would have charged 25%, 30%, it wouldn't have mattered, but you could have the money. So the liquidity went away, and that's what caused the collapse. That's my personal opinion, but they wouldn't give anybody any money.
And so when you talk about that, how did that relate? Go ahead. I apologize. Jumped on.
Well, it's okay. And then we had COVID as well. So if you think about it, just in the last 2 decades, there's been all kinds of, major stuff that was, that were more than just bumps in the road for every company in existence. And so, again, it was staying true, understanding what our purpose was, being clear about that, and just trusting the process. Every business has a process. Real estate, there's a process that you have to put in place to get to a decision-making position. And there's information involved. There's all kinds of things, but there's a process. So the 5 action steps, or the values primarily, is what I always fell back on. And so with that, we just continued to kind of forge through and not be worried or focused on what the failures were or the difficulties were, but just believing in, where we were going.
So one of the things that you had mentioned there was that, if you followed the process, if you were able to continue on what you were doing, things would turn out right. So it sounded like you played the long game on there, which most people don't play the long game. They look at what they're doing quarter by quarter, month by month, week by week, day by day. No, not many people look year by year, and it sounds like you were looking even longer than that. Was that, when you talk about it, one of the 5 areas is run to great purpose? That sounds a lot like run to great purpose. What are your thoughts?
It absolutely is. The long game is, again, the world wants you to have this, I want this, I want it right now. And there's little regard for what you have to do to get it. So that's not the long game. That's the short game, right? And so, playing the long game was difficult because you're getting all of the world's input, say, well, what are you doing there? How come blah, 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 right? And it just becomes noise. And it's a complete and total distraction. So the 5 action steps in particular put the guardrails up. It allowed us to stay inside, shut out the noise and just continue down the road and trusting that it was going to work. And it did.
Now, one of the things that you had said was you're starting to mentor somebody who's never been in real estate before. So that's one of the ways that I can see that you're using not only your success, but your serving leadership philosophy to be able to help the next generation. So can you talk a little bit about how you're working with that person, as well as what else are you doing to help promote that serving leadership model that you want to have other people follow?
Yeah, so I'm a believer in pay it forward. My life is full of instances where the perfect person stepped into my life at exactly the right time. The guy that wrote the check at lunch that one day to help me start my business, right there. That's a perfect example. There's several others similar to that. And so paying it forward is something that my father took a lot of time when I was working for him. He was a very patient man with me while I was involved in the world. So it's always been important for me to mentor other people, and that was the kind of reputation that our company has in this market. As we were building the company, is that you should go to Cawley, because he'll take care of you. He'll make sure that you have the tools that you need, and he'll spend the time that you need to make sure that you understand, what you need to do in the business. So, comes from my dad, and then again to the action steps. I think mentoring is so important in life. I've been mentored, as I said. People stepped in my life just at the perfect time. That's what the making a difference means in my mission statement, that you read. And so, when you add the 5 action steps of the serving leader, that's making a difference. And so we, just live in those.
So tell me about, let's go to a little different tack. There's a lot of other professionals that you have to work with, attorneys, accountants, insurance people, lots of other professionals that you have to bring in to be able to help you run your business.
Yes.
When you look at those professionals as you're bringing them in, are you hiring them based upon their skill set alone, or do you want to have people, or do you actually even look for people who are serving leaders first and skill set second? How does that come about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I skill set is important, but values is king. I want someone that has a clear set of values, and I can't tell you how many people I've helped them understand what their values are. There's lots of people that live their life and they've never taken the time like I did. I just got lucky. This guy showed up and gave me this life purpose exercise. Like, holy cow, right? And then so now I'm living the rest of my life like that. So the difference that made in my life, it wasn't that difficult, right? So why not help somebody else? Because once you understand what your values are, it's like the runway lights up. You're not landing in the dark anymore, right? So it really didn't seem difficult to me at all.
And then when you think about it for your personal life, so from the business side, I can see that. Is the same true for the personal life? I would think it's even more so. So how do you find the right people? Because again, now that you're successful, you're living part of your months in Naples, you're living in Chicago, you're living in different areas. And again, you have to have advisors to help you in different levels, whether it's your legal area, your tax areas, your insurance areas, especially in Florida with hurricanes and whatnot. How do you find the right people to work with there when you may not know Florida that well, or you may not know people in that area that well because you've never had to deal with the liquid side of a net worth? You've always dealt with the real estate side. How do you put together that team?
Well, it's again, I'm choosing based on who they are as people more so than their tools, their tool set, or forgot how you described it, but I think that I spend as much time as I can to try to understand how somebody thinks and what their thoughts are based on. What's their process? How do they get to where they think they need to go? And so it's always been about who they are as humans over. I mean, if it's close, I'm picking the person that I think has the stronger set of values. Because every relationship in our life is really based on trust, right, Kevin? I mean, right. You're certainly in an industry where trust is everything. A marriage is trust. Everything's trust. And so, I think it's more that you fall in trust, not fall in love.
That's a very good line. So when you think about now you're looking for other serving leaders at different times, you're running into them. Where do you usually find them?
Well, I've been fortunate, as have you, with the having been in several of these things, and I remain friends with many of them. But the other thing that happens is when you're living like a purpose-driven life, I don't mean to quote Rick Warren, but when you're living that kind of a life, it seems like that's who you end up doing business with. I mean, they just show up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so I really haven't had to look very far. I'm a service provider, right? I'm an expert. And so I want other experts in their field to partner with me. So the one thing that I try to always attach to is, what are their values? There's lots of experts out there, right? And they can all offer the same services. So I've got all kinds of competition in the real estate industry here, right? But, we feel because we're values-based, that's a different experience.
Yeah. So in another area, so there's things that you tell me you've read. Obviously, you've read The Serving Leader by John Stallworth. That's one book. Is there anything that you read on a regular occasion that you feel really brings to you that kind of serving leader model that you want to continually follow? Or what else do you do to be able to continue to get that kind of influx every month or every year?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's so much out there, right, with blogs, and it's almost overwhelming. I kind of move in the direction of faith-based folks. Again, it's so hard to trust the source of news, right? And so I'm trying to I'm pretty much have settled on faith-based type folks. I mean, there's blogs, there's all kinds of books. I do read a lot of articles. Listening to blogs, you could spend your whole life and never leave the house, right? And so I'm trying to be a little more disciplined about that. I mean, even a guy like Rogan, and I don't listen to him all the time, but TED Talks, there are a number of they have a number of topics that seem important, and so I'll tap into those and so they're everywhere, right? It's just a matter of tuning. What presentation do you want to hear? From what place are they coming? That's really what I try to focus on.
Now, I got one last question for you. So, a person comes to you and says, I saw your podcast, which I hope they all do, and then they say to you, "I'd like to become a serving leader like you are." How would you instruct them to start?
Well, depending on where they're based, I would offer they could do it. I'm happy to do it with them. I'm a certified trainer in the serving leader mentorship. So I'd offer to help them, or I would put them in touch with someone in a geographic area that they might be in if it's far, far, far away from me. I think that I would begin by asking them a lot of questions. Like I'd want to ask them, tell me what your top 5 values are. All right, give me 3. If you can't, give me 5, right? And just to have them start to think along those lines. And then ask them some of the same questions that you've asked me, right? How did you get to this point where you're thinking about doing something? And what's driving that, do you think? Because there's a lot of this that you don't know until you're actually in it, right? And so I think it's asking questions and understanding the program, because I've done it so often and for so long, 7 years now, I think. 17, I think, might have been the first time. Mm-hmm. And my complete and total trust and belief in it.
Hey, Dan, I want to thank you for being on Great Leaders Serve. I'm Kevin Best again, and this is from Center for Serving Leadership. And I want to thank you for being part of this meeting today, and we'll talk again soon.
For more information about the Center for Serving Leadership, visit our website at centerforservingleadership.com.